It's like originally Mountain Dew was just like Mountain Dew. Even though it's just called Mountain Dew, which could easily be a brand of like Kleenex tissues.
Oh yeah, definitely.
or like a Swiss a Swiss soda or something.
Swiss bottled water.
Yeah, Mountain Dew.
Soda's pushing it a little too
So
much.
Sorry, yeah.
So like
No,
Alpendudler.
they have that.
Like Alpendudler?
Yeah, exactly.
So Mountain Dew, that's just an English translation of
shit.
Alpendudler.
Is it really?
No.
Oh, you got me.
But it should be.
But there's also... No, Switzerland has that weird fucking, like, Rivella or whatever the hell it is.
Sorry. In my head, I translated Mountain Dew as Bergjuden. That's not correct. That's not correct.
Kieran, for all these years, thought that it was Mountain Dew.
America's a
How
fuckface.
is it the old right's favorite drink?
Oh god.
Well, no, 'cause they drink it in excess to prove that they're not racist.
Yeah. See, I got me some.
Do you ever see that fucking Stormfront whenever they're like...
No, I did not go on Stormfront.
I spent my time in weird ways. But no, they did that thing where they kept doing their like 23andMe's and Ancestry.com
That
tests.
sounds like a fun time.
Yeah, and it always comes back that they're at the very least like 1% African, right? There's like at very least.
Yeah.
They're never the pure ethnic whatever they actually want to be.
I remember on the 23andMe commercials, they actually like there was that YouTube clickbait thing, and they actually like advertised it as this thing of like, you know, even white nationalists are gonna find out that they're not white.
Is that seriously?
Yeah, but
Is that the thing where they had that Icelandic guy?
Exactly,
He
that
said
guy
like,
just
yeah,
like,
I'm 100% Icelandic.
Icelandic isn't a thing.
Oh, exactly. You're
The
fucking
entire
Danish.
nation of Iceland is just the rape babies of kidnapped Irish women taken there by Norwegian men.
Or Norwegian, sorry. Yes, not
Yeah.
the Danes.
Yeah.
I thought they were
No,
a
it
Danish
wasn't.
colony.
No, but
No,
I think I've said this before, but basically every famous Viking story ends with, and then they fought this great battle, retired, kidnapped a woman from Ireland, and retired to Iceland. It's pretty much all of it.
Normal, pure European culture.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sorry that I interrupted you with
Yeah,
the
so
23andMe
the
thing.
actual way they responded to doing their fucking 23andMe, Ancestry.com, whatever the fuck, was that they proved that the world doesn't actually need Black and Asian people because there's a percentage of it already in them. So it's fine. We can kill the, actual one.
Wait, what?
Yes.
Damn.
That is some logic.
They're like, I'm 23% Asian, therefore the world doesn't need to be 23% Asian. That was
my
basically their logic.
Oh my god.
Well, it's a shame that this
Took a
weapon
turn.
doesn't exist anymore.
Real crying shame.
So hey y'all, welcome to the Corner Späti. I am Nick, joined by Yulia and Kieran. Kieran is back from wherever he was.
Yeah, where were you?
I was in Sweden, which I previously described as what if gentrification was a country. It's expensive. It's really fucking stupidly expensive. It's a beautiful place to be bored all the time and spend way too much money.
Sounds like fun. We should go.
I was in Malmo, which, like, to be fair, every other Swedish person hates that place.
Seriously? Oh.
Yeah.
Why? Is there a reason for it? Like,
They basically, every time you just talk to them, they're just like, it's basically Denmark. Don't go there.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like for like a cool reason, that like something like.
Oh, then there's the whole like right wing dog whistle about Malmo, because like they're like a large section of the right wing, particularly non-Swedes, are convinced that the entirety of Malmo is like Sharia law.
Oh wow.
Kieran was in Sweden to spread the caliphate. Good job.
I
Exactly.
converted it.
This is like a mission.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be, but no, like an actual real shit though. Whitest fucking place I've ever been to. They're talking about absolutely nothing.
So there is no Sharia law there then.
No.
So you failed us.
I have failed. I'm sorry.
God damn it, Kieran.
I only spread a small bit of Sharia law to like one of the wings in Copenhagen Airport. I was there
That's
for 3
a start.
hours. It was a good foundation. It was like one small H&M Kids and an Irish pub.
Yeah, and Rob is in. Where is he now? Traversing to London.
I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you know?
I think it's London.
It's
'cause-
Yeah, I
London.
think it's London.
Yeah, he's trying to meet with our Russian contact to make sure that we
Get paid.
get paid. Yeah. Keep spreading that disinformation throughout Europe.
This just in, Rob has been poisoned.
Oh God.
Vladimir Putin has made a statement. He is not behind it. He just got unhealthy levels of whatever that like uranium isotope is in his cab for magically no
Yeah.
reason whatsoever.
I feel like there's easier ways to poison people. It always seems so theatrical with the Russians.
Yeah. All jokes aside,
Yeah.
democracy. It's a thing. Some countries have it.
Eurovision has it.
Eurovision has it.
Oh yeah.
Russia apparently has it.
Oh yeah. So much.
Everyone says that they have it more or less. There's not
Yeah.
a single country that
They just put a different adjective in front
Yeah.
of it, like
Yeah.
illiberal or selective or.
Russia has so much democracy that the ballots are just completely stopped.
Yeah, so three countries what 2 weeks
Yeah.
have been have had some pretty kick-ass actions of democracy.
Some weird nice democracy.
Yeah, so
I think the first one to go with is
the one that's the least weird and that's
and the
just,
least European, maybe,
yeah.
depending on who you ask.
Well, Eurovision rules, they are European.
Eurovision rules.
Yeah.
And UEFA rules, they're also European.
All right, cool.
Yeah,
That's
so
a
we're
fact.
going here. Cornish Späti goes by UEFA rules and
Eurovision
rules.
rules.
So
10 points for.
10 points for
10 points for football.
so Australia then's also.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
Australia
And
is super
UEFA?
good.
I feel like it has
No,
to be.
no,
in the
no.
middle of the Venn
I mean, we
diagram.
know Australia is just like a bunch of British people left out in the sun too long.
Yeah,
So-
true. Okay. No, but they were in Eurovision that one year. Yeah, so we're talking about Israel. And our good pal Benjamin Netanyahu is once again safe, sound,
Yeah.
ready to make a fucking insane coalition.
Woo.
Good job, BB. I mean, I was
No
not
one
paying
saw it
attention. I think we all
that
saw
was
it
a
coming.
surprise.
Yeah, it was definitely probably the most unenthusiastic I've ever seen like media be for a pretty big election coming up because there was absolutely no competition. You have the former head of the IDF in I forget isn't his name also first name Benjamin?
All of their names is
I
Benjamin.
think it's all like I think it's Benjamin Gantz if I'm not mistaken. I could be
Good
wrong.
job.
But
Gantz, yeah.
It is Gans. That's his last name, but
Yeah.
I don't know if it's Benjamin.
He apparently has called Netanyahu to congratulate him just 5 hours ago.
oh,
Nice.
cool.
Great. That
Yeah.
is like
So he's officially conceded.
it's a
I
good
guess.
loser.
But yeah, he formed a brand new
Sportsman.
party of the blue and white or something like that.
Mhm.
Who are also just a center-right party, more or less. The left had, any version of a left party had no chance whatsoever. And you had the big ballers going at it with Naftali Bennett and whatever her name is, the new one.
Shaket,
Yes.
if I pronounce it right, I
So-
don't know, but
Blue
Check
and
it.
white, it might be fair to call them like center. They're like socially liberal, fiscally conservative. Kind of
they're like
people.
Bavaria, blue and white.
Lib Dems, basically, or yeah. I don't fucking care. They're losers.
Yeah. That's all we care
don't-
about here.
we don't like
who
them.
wins, who loses.
Yeah.
But are they going to make the thing I never really understood with that is are they willing to make a coalition with Netanyahu?
I think he'd have to. Looking at these numbers, this is my first time looking at it, so forgive me if I've gotten this wrong. So, I think he's the only, they're the only party that he can actually fucking, Yeah.
Israeli parliament's incredibly small.
120, you need 60 to make a coalition.
61 to make
61,
a majority,
to get like a majority. That's a fair point. So 36 is what Likud, Benjamin Netanyahu's party got. So they're what, 24 seats short.
And that's mostly just coming from the far right and ultra orthodox parties and shit like that.
Well, yeah, they either work with the blue and white, which would give them like
which they could easily do, and it's not off the table.
God no, it's it would be kind of like what you would call a grand coalition because they're the two largest parties by and large. Like blue and white are only have a 1 seat difference between them and Likud. Like they almost won. But then the rest of these are just ridiculous parties all holding like between 8 and 4 seats apiece.
Yeah. Okay. The only positive thing that I think I read about this is that there's a party that's an Arab Jewish alliance or an Arab Israeli alliance that is extremely far left wing that actually gained some grounds in parliamentary seats. And I know it's not like a thing of like, oh, hooray, like, Israel's, they're accepting that apartheid's bad. But that was at least like the little like glimmer of hope is that this party, I think,
that
got
they gained some seats.
they gained a few seats.
Okay, that's something.
So if, in a country that where half the population cannot vote.
Yeah.
You're talking about Hadash Talal. They're the like cross party.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's like
they're actually formed out of the Communist Party, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Hadash is like the far left Israeli political party, and I'm probably pronouncing this wrong, but Ta'al is like an Arab nationalist party that works with them, and they together have gotten 6 seats.
Yeah.
Which fifth? Joint fifth,
we'll
call it that, in the running. But yeah, it's just blue and white Likud have taken this completely, and either they work together or Benjamin Netanyahu works with like some absolutely batshit people to the further right of his party,
who he's been pandering to anyway. So it's like either case is going to happen and is good for him, more or less.
It's the strategy of like almost every right-wing party in a lot of Europe, except maybe like this is what they were doing 5 to 10 years ago, which is they all felt the need to move right. Like that was David Cameron in the UK calling Brexit referendum was to try and steal, because they were threatened by UKIP stealing seats from their right. Yeah. You
have that here too, I think, with the CDU as well, in a different sense, not so much in like a openly nationalist sense, but in a at least willing to appease that to a degree. So it is a pretty normal thing in the playbook. But I don't know, like I just find it more so like that this election's cultural, like relevant of the times, especially because everyone's saying that Netanyahu's a populist and this and that, going back to our boy Munkgang, that his first response of it was like, oh, I can't believe that a populist is winning again. It's like, dude, Benjamin Netanyahu's been kind of playing this game better than everyone for a much longer time before the word populist was being thrown around. And has completely changed his rhetoric over the years in order to become more popular, just based on like, oh, Israel's going more right wing, I'm gonna go more right wing. Oh, I want to be perceived as being more socially liberal, I'm gonna pretend to be more socially liberal while also just not actually doing anything about that. Like, it's really interesting seeing how when he's in the US he's like really pro gay rights, and in Israel plays a complete different game, I guess, if you want to call it that. So yeah, I mean, Israel, cool place.
There is like, what I'm seeing here is like 10 seats out of 120 could be called nominally left wing.
I see, like it's like they share those 3 parties that could be like called like, maybe a bit left wing, share probably a total of 10% or something. At least that's what.
To be fair though, a lot of these left wing parties too are still like very much like what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, they're just like very openly like, Zionist parties that still want occupation and stuff like that. And the only actual...
So Labour certainly is...
Oh yeah, Labour is an absolute fucking shit show since Rabid was killed and whatnot.
Yeah, but then there's like Meretz.
Yeah.
Which is like Social Democratic Green. They just kind of seem to skirt the issue. And then you've got the like Hadash Ta'al and Ra'am Balad, which are maybe a bit more aggressively.
But Meretz also had like some problems with censorship of an MP, Hanin Zouabi. I guess was his name. So you could also say that this is probably not a party to put your hope on. So
yeah. And I had actually like there was a I was at university on Tuesday, and there's a student. We were in the cafe there, and she was from Israel, but she's part of the Ethiopian minority.
Oh yeah.
And was explaining how Likud is actually for a lot of Ethiopian Jews like a good thing for them, because they were the first party in the 50s to like accept them into the state of Israel as
shit, really?
Yeah. And so they have a lot of like diehard support from this group from this group of people who will never vote anything differently. So, and she was explaining too how like the Labor Party and whatnot historically has been really bad about that issue, that it's been very much an issue of like, you know, white Jews calling the shots and whatnot, which is a thing that I never even like knew about nor thought about, that of course there's a class situation within Israel of like, you know, Israel and Palestinians, very clearly, but there's also an interior one that she was saying that then like there is a lot of privilege that then is given to, you know, people of like, you know, European background, and to then those who are, you know, Ethiopian or North African, that they're kind of, you know, put into like when it comes to the military, like they get the shitty positions, or they typically are on the front lines and whatnot, where then all the European descendants are get the cushier jobs. So there is an internal class struggle within that too. That was like, oh yeah, like I knew that was a thing. I didn't realize that was a thing that then also like pumped up Likud's numbers with older generations.
I knew that was a thing too. I did not know that would be something that it could become on that side.
Like weird. Very weird to think of.
Oh god.
Yeah, so just to kind of show how
meet the candidates.
Meet the candidates, and how if you're thinking that then in any way any other candidate other than Netanyahu, who is also horrible, could have maybe have been a glimmer of hope for the situation between Israelis and Palestinians, it isn't. Like they're all horrible about this issue, and just more insane than the next.
Yep.
So Yulia, take it away.
Yeah, I start with the first one. I think everyone should have the opportunity to read one.
Benjamin Netanyahu's first.
I wanted you to guess who it is.
Oh, okay,
who said it?
Oh, cool.
Okay,
I don't know all their names, but
you can just guess.
They're different parties, are they?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
So I'm not gonna start with the first one because now you know. So.
Okay, cool.
Okay. I've killed lots of Arabs in my life.
Naftali Bennett.
There's no problem with that.
I knew that one. Yeah.
Yep, that was right. 100 points.
What's the full quote?
Yeah, I've killed lots of Arabs in my life. There's no problem with that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Naftali Bennett. I know that.
Definitely. Okay. 6,231 targets were destroyed. Parts of Gaza were sent back to the Stone Age.
Guns.
Wow, shit.
Oh, shit.
Did you like practice or something?
I did. I was doing reps.
Come on, this is rigged.
Of course it's rigged. I've already seen this list. I memorized it.
Okay, wow. Those who are against us deserve to have their heads chopped off with an axe.
That's that other guy who's not. I forget his name, but it's not the. It's not the Fine Maiden, and it is not.
It's a very German name.
I don't know.
Can you guess?
No.
It's
Hans.
Lieberman. It's Lieberman.
I was about to joke and say Lieberman.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, next one. What's so horrifying about understanding that the entire Palestinian people is the enemy?
That's our the lovely Minister of Justice.
That's our lovely lady Sheket.
This smells like fascism. Or
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh Christ.
Okay, so last but not least. Israel isn't a state of all its citizens. Israel is the nation state of the Jewish people, and it alone.
Yeah, Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yep,
yeah.
DB.
Going with the classic.
Compared to the rest, he seems pretty reasonable. He's got my vote.
That's the unfortunate thing is that, like that is kind of true.
Yeah.
You know, like that he's
Isn't that sad?
that the alternative for Netanyahu is just the guy who says like, yeah, we sent Gaza back to the Stone Age.
Yeah.
You know,
well, they do that with like that happens in Russia all the time. Whereas I think it's literally called the Liberal Democratic Party or the like Liberal Party, where the guy who's the head of that party is just absolutely insane, and he exists only for Putin to seem reasonable.
Is that the guy that? What's his name, Yulia? The one that John McCain fucking loves.
What, Navalny?
Is that him?
The counter elite? I don't know what his party is. No, I think it's not.
No, he's like, because Navalny's been like, basically pushed out of the country. No, this guy is
but
like,
still
this guy's allowed debate like Putin. He's like considered fine or whatever. But his whole politics is just like, yeah, I think we should just like murder every second lesbian randomly, and Putin will just be like, no, we won't do that. I'm so reasonable.
We'll just imprison them.
Yeah, exactly, true. Navalny wouldn't probably say that. He would just like do bullshit and then say different stuff.
Yeah, and he's also like, I think Navalny like is a little bit more just like openly ethno-nationalist than a lot of the other opposition people.
Yeah, people still love him because he's not Putin.
I mean, that's like literally you have 180 million people to pick from who aren't Vladimir Putin.
All of them shit. I'm just gonna say it.
So the Russia question, I guess, moves us on to the next our next country, that is the hinterlands of Russia.
West Russia. You've heard of White Russia. How about yellow and blue Russia?
Yellow blue Russia. Nice, yeah.
So yeah, Ukraine had these bizarre. Well, they had these things that's called a presidential election, but
that's bizarre.
Because sometimes countries do that.
Yeah.
You know, even countries in Eastern Europe who aren't part of Europe, they do these things. They function kind of the same way, but you get a little bit.
They learned that in the 90s.
Yeah. They figured this thing out that you can cast your votes, and they maybe like, I don't know, aren't. Oh, you okay? Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't know. Ukraine just really confuses the shit out of me whenever they vote or do
whenever
anything.
they do anything.
Yeah, because it's like, because kind of going back to that video that we watched and you know shat on, is that Europe loves Ukraine. They love Ukraine.
Oh yeah.
We love their land.
We love their land.
We love their bread.
Yeah,
you can take or leave the cities.
Yeah, Ukraine's just been this big fucking wet dream of Western Europe for quite some time. I kind of don't know why.
It's that NATO mindset, to be perfectly honest. I think.
Yeah.
Write a book about
it's
NATO mindset.
This really is it
keep pushing east.
I mean, it's this really romantic thought of people actually dying for to join the European Union. I think
Euro
even if they're not.
Yeah, exactly. We've all watched the movie.
Yeah, so that's to be perfectly honest, that's what initially got me into European politics, was seeing that event and being like, I've been a part of this thing my whole life. Why don't I know anything about it?
See, you were inspired by it. Other people were inspired by it.
I think I didn't want to annex Ukraine. That wasn't my takeaway.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of like Eastern Europe adopted the 2-round presidential system because they kind of became this new country in 1989, and back then the leading force in Europe was France. It wasn't Germany, because Germany was two countries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Germany hadn't gone beast mode.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Well,
always.
Well, before they did, but yeah.
Come on.
Actually, which point in German history would we call beast mode? I don't think it's the current set of affairs.
What? Totally is right now as well.
Yeah.
Okay, fair.
Austerity? Come on.
Yeah.
That is just like a different type of beast mode.
Definitely.
It's a different beast.
And you can't come with a tank, you come with austerity.
Yeah, exactly. Germany realized like, shit, fuck, we can't like fuck over Europe by just, bombarding everyone.
It's a more subtle way to...
More civilized.
More civilized.
Working on me.
Yeah. So Yulia, you're our in-house Eastern Europe expert. Let's just call you that to
nice.
be fair.
Okay, yeah. What do we want to talk about? I mean, first of all, it's quite interesting who they elected. I mean, it was like the same shit show as always. It's Timoshenko and Poroshenko and some other
Shenko.
But this time we had a
Pachinko machine.
Yeah, what I found interesting that Yulia Timoshenko. See, I mix up the names now. Timoshenko actually only gained like 14%, and she's still.
I forgot that she still exists.
Yeah, but she's still like the sad. Lost princess of Ukraine. I mean, she was a European hope.
A European fairy tale.
Yeah. It actually is, I think. But yeah, we have a new candidate, and this candidate is called Vladimir Zelensky, who actually is a comedian. So.
Cool, a genius. He's got my vote.
Yeah, actually, he's also got the rest of the votes.
They combined the French electoral system with Italian politics.
Yeah, seriously. Oh yeah, Italian candidates are also always very funny. Like what's her name? Cicciolina?
She was a local thing though, wasn't she?
I don't remember.
Well, Beppe Grillo was.
Yeah, he ran for Prime Minister of Italy. And
he founded 5-Star Movement.
Yeah,
which are now leading the country.
True. Yeah.
Even though everyone hates them now.
So yeah, comedian. He's actually from the TV show called Sluha Narodu, and it's it's a show. Where this means translated, it's a servant of the people, and it's actually a show where he plays
all comedians are.
Where he plays the role of a president and of a very truthful and down to earth president, and I think
he's white Obama.
But
Beto O'Rourke.
He just stands on things all the time. And
I'd like to congratulate the new president of Ukraine, Beto O'Rourke. Get out of here, Beto. Get down, Beto.
Well, it must have been very convincing because actually most of the people voted for him. So we still have a second round that is coming up on the 21st of April.
So he's
on Easter, but our Easter.
Yeah,
not their Easter.
Your
not Orthodox.
Easter, not the other Easter.
Yeah, not the other.
Correct Easter.
Yeah, correct. I swear to God, every fucking year I hear from my dad about how Orthodox Easter is is the proper Easter. And he doesn't base it on anything that makes any sense. He's like, well, the way the moon's lined up in the sky, and that I'm like,
yeah, what?
Okay.
The way the moon lines up in the sky, it says Jesus died today.
Yeah.
There's just the moon
that
has
just
has a plane that goes by.
Jesus died for your new plane. Sins.
Actually, am I peaking because I can hear my voice?
No.
Fine. Okay, good.
I mean, you're peaking in terms of your career, but
whoa, thanks.
Sorry, I was just thinking.
Wait, the precarious
this is
work
the
situation.
Point of your life.
Oh
Get
shit!
used to it.
I'm ready to
You're
die now.
Just like a dentist, from It's Always Sunny.
Yeah.
Where we just go around.
Did I already peak?
Ridiculous shit. I haven't peaked yet.
So let's maybe compare the candidates a bit.
Well, let's also. I mean, before that,
maybe not.
Before comparing, I think the thing that's always really weird with Ukraine is how all the parties are pretty much just blandly centrist.
Yeah.
It's actually quite interesting because up to 2015, you didn't really have a leftist representation in parliament. And now you had a candidate, actually. He is from, what's the party called?
The Marxist-Leninist Party of Ukraine. What?
Yeah, that would be awesome. No, his name is Sergei Kaplin, and he's from the party Prastich Lude. And sorry for my pronunciation.
You don't speak Ukrainian, so it's fine.
It's the same in Russian, but
okay.
But I haven't spoken.
You heard it here first. Ukraine is the same as Russia.
Our views in Ukraine go up. We just get a bunch of we all get doxxed by ASOF members.
Seriously. Okay.
The new president of Ukraine, Beto O'Rourke, is going to do a kickflip over Donbass.
Okay, my fault. I apologize for that. I know better, actually.
Tell us about this cool leftist.
Yeah. So, he is from what I just said, I won't repeat. It's a people's party.
Cool.
That's always a great name.
Yes.
He actually didn't have any chances of winning.
Sounds about right for Eastern Europe.
Yeah. Well, he's a lawmaker, like the typical stuff for a social democrat. And he's actually like something he stood really behind was he wanted to, because we have now this decommunization law that was established by Poroshenko during his term. Actually, one sign of him going like ultra-conservative fun time.
The best time.
Oh yeah,
ultra conservative fun time.
That's a nice way of saying beast mode.
That's different from beast mode.
And this decommunization
beast mode with austerity.
Ukrainian beast mode is the unincorporated free Ukraine territory. That's Ukraine beast mode.
Exactly. So this decommunization law requires that street names and other like Plushat square names and shit like that, that carry the name of like a communist hero.
Ballers.
Should be renamed. And Kaplan says he will fight to remove Marx from that list because he thinks it's not Karl Marx's fault. Like the Soviet Union isn't his fault. So I think that is something I can get behind. But he's also, I mean, there are some like suspicions that he is supported by. I always mix them up, Yanukovych and the other one.
Poroshenko?
No, they all Yanukovych. Let's say that. So the former. We can edit it. I can say the right name. You can edit the right name in.
Former president of Ukraine.
The former,
president.
president.
Was chased out.
Exactly. Right. That he is kind of like.
It is Yanukovych, I think.
Yanukovych. Yeah. Affiliated with him and has some pro-Russian ties and actually gets some money from some pro-Russian oligarchs. But I mean, who doesn't? I mean, it's Ukraine. Everyone has some nice money.
Even the fucking comedian Funtime Man.
Yes.
Also has a little bit more of a pro-Russia stance, does he not? Or
I'm not sure about that because actually he is, as well as Poroshenko, for the territorial integrity of the Ukraine and regaining it. So he wants Crimea back. He also wants Donetsk and Luhansk back. And he actually wants Russia to pay reparations when they get Crimea back. And I mean Poroshenko as well.
Don't mind me, I'm stupid.
That's fine. I mean they both as I said they both have the same views, but they use different rhetoric.
Yeah.
Poroshenko is more this what team populism would call a populist rhetoric. Actually, like this is the enemy, Russia is the enemy, etc., etc.
Right.
And our new guy, Vladimir Zelensky, seems to be more well-tempered when it comes to that.
Is he like, we can get Crimea back by being mates with Russia?
Yeah.
Right, okay, cool, yeah. I mean, sure, fuck it, we'll try anything once.
Well, yeah, that's it. Like, that's the thing. I guess I phrased it wrong. It wasn't that he was pro-Russia, but he was like pro-opening a dialogue with Russia.
Exactly, yeah. He's
which for Ukraine is kind of a big deal, maybe.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, so we have a comedian in one corner.
We have three comedians.
He's backed by like a TV oligarch, namely the person who funded the TV channel that was like the home of the show he was in.
Yeah. And
like he's kind of like one of their stars, and it's the guy who owns a handful of other TV stations. Yeah. So I remember watching like interviews on the streets, people reacting to this guy being like, half of them were like, oh, he's the only one who's not an oligarch, and then the other half were like, he's not an oligarch himself, but
I mean, it's true. I mean, actually everyone wants to fight corruption, but everyone is very deep in the swamp.
Yeah. You know, if they only had a candidate who would drain that swamp.
Yeah.
Well, some countries can be so lucky.
Well, you gotta start low with, for example, removing Karl Marx from that list. So
True. And now I guess going to someone then who is a part or like, you know, oligarch once removed to the incumbent.
We're done with Ukraine?
No.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so I thought that you two were making this up when you were telling me about this before we were recording.
Okay.
But the what is it Poroshenko? Is that his name?
Yeah, Poroshenko, yeah.
Yeah, go off. Like I do not know. Like this is not a real thing.
Come with me and you'll see a bunch of poorly defended eastern provinces.
The chocolate king.
Yeah.
Chocolate king.
Yeah.
Oompa loompa diddly dee. Crimea.
You belong to me.
Damn it, that's good.
That was good. That should be a song.
Yeah. This motherfucker
that actually should be a song. It's way better than Army, Faith, and Mother Tongue.
Yeah.
Oh, that's... Oof, I don't like that imagery. Oh, jeez. Oh. Army, Faith, and Mother Tongue. Oh, oh.
Yeah, so...
Germany above all things. Oh.
Yeah, Poroshenko, I found out today from these two who are not joking with me, is the fucking chocolate oligarch of Ukraine.
Every industry needs an oligarch. It's almost as if oligarch is just interchangeable with, like, business magnate.
Yeah. Maybe you're onto something.
Yeah.
The Candy
Bezos
King.
is the online Walmart oligarch.
Yeah, but for being the chocolate king of the Ukraine, he actually...
Chocolate king.
2004 memes again.
Yo. Wait until I bust out some Harambe memes on you.
I turn away from the mic so that I can annex. Chocolate Ray jokes, let's go.
Well, actually, those two parts weren't allowed to vote, by the way.
Crimea is part of the Ukraine.
Tata rain. Oh, depressing. Indigenous Muslim populations.
All gone.
All gone.
All gone.
Back off to
But-
Kazakhstan again.
Yeah, but for being the chocolate king, he actually doesn't
He's
have...
not very sweet.
Yeah, he's not. Seriously, that's what I wanted to say. Just fucking stole it.
Yes. Stealing jokes
Oh,
from
hang on, I'm
women.
going to steal another one. He looks like he ate all the chocolate. Drop mic. Right. Guys, everyone stop. We're going to do a quick victory lap from that joke.
Okay, that's actually very cute. So, yeah, let's talk about his agenda. Because he was elected in 2014 as someone who wanted to bring Europe to the Ukraine. The only thing that he actually accomplished was this 90-day visa-free
That's good enough, right?
visit
That's almost that you're European.
that Ukrainians can spend in Europe now, and vice versa. I actually took advantage of it already, so was nice.
Yeah. To put context, he became president immediately after like the whole Euromaidan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This I remember.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And during that time, he also said, because then this stuff with Russia happened, we all know about it.
Yulia just brings out the chalkboard, just starts like doing the whole Glenn
So
Beck thing.
let me explain.
So Russia is here. Just draw a line. That's Ukraine.
And actually,
And
this
behind
is,
all it, George Soros.
we're not sure what this is, but
Transnistria.
yeah. It should be all Transnistria.
The one true successor state. Transnistria.
It's nice to go by bike through Transnistria, I read. But yeah, during that time he said something like, okay, I'm not gonna like attack any of the like Russian minorities in our country. We're gonna keep it going like it is. I'm I'm not gonna ban the language or something like that because I want to have a united nation. That changed.
Yeah, 2015.
Yeah.
Or, sorry, 2019.
Exactly. So no, before that changed already because he established something like that is called the language law, and it's actually it says that for example that every print medium in the country is supposed to write in Ukrainian language, which was a problem for the Kiev Post, which is an English paper in the Ukraine, and they had to discontinue their newspaper.
Fun.
So that is one of the nice effects of this agenda. Also on the list, for example, I forgot.
He had didn't he have a whole thing about establishing his own branch of the Orthodox Church?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. He's like Ukrainian Orthodox,
Yeah, he managed to accomplish that, and I had to learn about how the Orthodox Church operates, which that's just a bunch of Greek words I know now that I'll never use in any other context. Autocephaly. I just have to say it now. But anyway, that turned out to be something he got to did a couple of months ago, and it turns out no one cared.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Yeah, because it was really seemed like he was trying to push it for the whole this will get me the re-election, and it clearly didn't.
Oh yeah, didn't you said something about those far right.
The bum rushes.
Yeah, exactly.
The bum rushes. So for 3 weekends in a row, while Poroshenko was traveling around the country. By traveling around the country, it seemed to just be Kiev commuter towns, just places, where you commute into Kiev. He would go give a speech, and about 30 young upstart skinheads would try and fucking rush the stage to attack him for not being right-wing enough.
That is interesting because actually, I mean, he followed a clear policy of national memory for the purpose of strengthening Ukrainian identity.
So he's just gonna create even more monuments to Nazis.
Yeah. But at the same time, trying to establish an eternal Europeanization of the Ukraine, which is kind of interesting.
Which Europe doesn't probably actually want, although they in theory do.
Yeah, it's a bit of a. So it's kind of tragic. So first of all, I really like the idea that these Nazis rush the stage because we appreciate you putting all print media into Ukrainian, but we actually wanted it in Ukrainian, but in a very specific black letter font. Just for that vibe.
Where are your theses on the Tatar population? Come on.
Oh yeah.
And then so the kind of tragic thing about the Europeanization of the Ukraine is that it very quick after Euromaidan, it very quickly became apparent to, I think, a lot of powers that be in Europe that Ukraine was just going to turn into an absolute fucking quagmire, and you couldn't really have closer ties with it without a lot of northern and southern Europe going cold for the winter, essentially, having their gas supplies cut off. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but in Germany, Ostpolitik still kind of reigns. The idea that we shouldn't be too aggressive to Russia, that we should always approach them.
No, especially because Russia has established a bunch of very, very, very important business relations with Germany that then, if they were jeopardized, as we can see with the former Chancellor of Germany being Putin's right-hand man.
Oh, Gerhard Schröder.
For Gazprom.
Such a nice guy.
Right.
Love what he did with Hartz IV.
Oh yeah, he fucking sucked as a Bundeskanzler. And
love his show.
He's I mean, I think that proves that exactly right, that you have this person who is so integral in post Cold War politics for Germany, being so close to Putin and being so close to this gas line that powers most of Germany, if not most of Western Europe, because Germany has, and I guess we'll talk about this on a different episode, when it the Kohlenausstieg, so trying to transition from coal, and Germany's completely ditched nuclear power as of 2022. I believe they want to be completely free of it. And wind power can't power the whole country by itself yet. There's not the infrastructure that's made, so they rely on a lot of Russian gas.
Right.
Nice.
So yeah, like that fucks up, and it explains Germany's relation to why Germany, of all the countries I think within the European Union, are much more open to when it comes to joining international financial organizations that are more Eastern oriented. Germany gives them a chance actually because of potentially that pressure from Russia. China has a lot of investment in Germany as well, which is good actually in my opinion. Like I think that it's good not to look at these nations as boogeymen, accept them as like, okay, yeah, they are shit. To like the politics of Russia are fucking garbage.
Show me a nation that isn't shit.
Exactly.
Except
Yeah.
Transnistria.
Whoa,
Exactly.
whoa. No, but it's like I think that is a sense of like realpolitik that then is maybe good. Is that like treat nations and their foreign matters respectfully, not as just like these like whenever the U.S. talks about China or Russia, it's very much in a lens of like Orientalism.
Yeah.
Like these fucking barbarians are doing this and that and that. China or in Russia will do the exact same things financially or imperialistically or whatever.
Yeah.
Actually, China probably less than Russia. And then the U.S. fucking just loses its shit while then also just like colonizing all of fucking South America.
Yeah. I mean, China has imperial
in Africa.
In Africa and like east of it in the sea and stuff, South China Sea and shit like that. But like,
oh yeah, true. They do have like military things.
Yeah,
but you have to like look in the sense of like is that the more defensive or more expansionist? And that's a whole debate within itself.
Yeah, but I guess like the thing is that I really see Europe in probably within our lifetimes pivoting towards China. Like Russia was always a no-go because of their imperialistic in our backyard type of thing, but Europe will just go where the money is. And if the money's going to be in China, then like
and China's willing to invest billions, hundreds of billions of dollars.
They're already doing backdoor shit in Montenegro and Serbia for the purposes of like, yeah, these two countries are probably going to be the EU soon. So what if we already built them like metro stations and we were already involved?
5G apparently that is coming to Europe is a Chinese grid.
Like the same time there was this
it's a Chinese conspiracy.
Literally, people think that people legitimately think.
You're telling me there's internet in the air? Get out of here! That seems fake. But there was also an incident with like very recently with the Italian government, like basically saying, yeah, we're going to take part in the Belt and Road project, and that was interesting to see because a lot of Europe was like, no, you can't do that. Good job, you did that. No, you can't do that.
Well, it was like after just I guess one more little thing about this too. It's like after the financial crisis in Greece, where Europe is like, scurrying to figure out what to do with investment because it was pretty much just like German companies reclaiming land that they lost in World War II practically.
Sneaky Germany.
Yeah,
they didn't make it to Ireland the first time.
Yeah, so like the entire port of Thessaloniki got like just not bought but just like acquired by German companies. Like I guess you could say bought because they bought them for nothing. They weren't worth anything. Horrible amounts of austerity. And the only other country that then was offered for Greece as an alternative for investment was China. And a lot of Greece was looking at this as like this is a good opportunity for us because they're willing to work in different ways of investment that isn't predatory like Germany is, where they're just going to sell it off to the lowest bidder. That they were willing to like build infrastructure in the country and this and that and that. And the European Union was fucking pissed, but at the same time there was like that, oh yeah, good that you're getting back up on your feet. But why don't you do it with the Germans instead of... And then you saw the signs of everyone with like Merkel being a Nazi and shit like that.
I remember that.
I really hope, like, if it does become the United States of Europe, Greece is our Florida. That's what's gonna happen.
Oh yeah, like geographic location's already there.
I mean, yeah, it's basically and just put a bunch of crazy people, retired people, and Universal Studios Park. Like it'll be great.
And some alligators.
Ah, yeah. That'd be cool as shit. Oh, that's gonna be some like, we're gonna get like a Trump in Europe that's gonna be like to stop the refugee boats. It's gonna release a bunch of alligators into the Aegean Sea.
That's a plan.
Oh yeah, so a country that is actually that Greece actually is a part of, which is Turkey.
Oh yeah, we're talking about Turkey now.
Yeah, our last but certainly not least country, election, whatever we want. No, just country.
Yeah.
Just big ballers.
Yeah.
Is Turkey's recent municipal elections, were they not? They weren't really anything.
Yeah.
Like, okay, they were nationwide, but it's for voting for like mayors and shit like that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of things at once. It's like mayors of cities as well as just like local councillors or
Yeah. And so the general plan, at least from what I've gathered, is that Erdogan really tried to make this about himself, which was, you know, a big baller move, and really kind of positioned it that it's the stabilization of the AKP is dependent on these elections. He did a pretty big baller thing recently leading up to the election, as we talked about earlier in our show, not this one, but on a different episode, of just, you know, deciding that Hagia Sophia is once again going to become a mosque.
Nice.
Right decision.
And after Christchurch just started showing the video that the shooter made.
Oh yeah, that he started showing on the campaign trail.
On the campaign trail, exactly. And started then just doing all these like World War I references about how that the Turks were going to destroy the Australians who were coming to kill them.
Yeah, it was Gallipoli.
Exactly. Yes, I could not think of the.
I love when the president of a country brings up Gallipoli.
Yeah. So
Total
his tactic was like, I hate when people try to compare that, like, oh, Erdogan's just like, he's just a European populist, this and that and that. Like, he is beyond that. He is, you know, all these fucking chump populists are trying to just be half of what Erdogan is. Like, there's not a more insane fucking leader currently in the world than Recep Tayyip Erdogan.
What would be the Trump equivalent of showing the Christchurch live stream? Like on the campaign trail, because that could happen in 2020.
It totally could, but I don't know of any terrorist attacks that have happened against the right in the United States. That's
Maybe it just shows 9/11 videos.
Oh god!
Yeah, like that,
okay, so you already had that in the United States. You have the entire fucking city of New York is exactly that mentality.
What about like the chaos on the border? Remember when the caravan arrived at the border?
Yeah.
We just throw selective video footage of that.
But it'd have to be that, but then just like people in the caravan just like stealing American citizens and just decapitating
being
them.
Hezbollah agents.
Oh shit, I forgot about that.
What?
There was who's the head of the CIA?
Johnny CIA.
Yeah.
That guy.
Yeah.
Pompeo.
Pompeo. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Literally, like when this Venezuela shit was first boiling up, when right before Gallardo or before after Gallardo declared himself supreme ruler.
Yeah.
Supreme ruler.
God Emperor for life.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Interim God Emperor.
Interim God Emperor for 3 weeks.
Fighting off the chaos that would absorb all of man's souls.
Yeah. Pompeo just like went full beast mode and was like, oh yeah, by the way, Hezbollah is in Venezuela.
And they're coming. They're coming for you.
Yeah, and it's just the most dipshit fucking just grabbing for anything that can stick.
Because Venezuela is just like a hop, skip, and a jump.
I mean, as we found out a few weeks ago, Venezuela is actually Hungary, so...
Yes, that is
true.
Yeah.
So what you're telling me is Hezbollah is in Austria. Oh, no.
Viktor Orban is actually Nassau.
Oh, good. God. Turkey.
But, yeah, so Turkey. Erdogan just... kind of had a plan that didn't work for him. AKP lost a lot. I mean, Yulia will explain it all in depth, of course, because she's a big baller about this shit.
Don't like...
I'm not pressuring you. Just don't fuck up.
Raising expectations.
No, but I mean, you actually like researched this a little bit more in depth than I did. I'm just saying bullshit that I hope I'm right about.
Yeah, your phone's
just
out,
continue.
which is
that's
pretty good.
But yeah, so the AKP mostly just Erdogan, had this very much like making the elections about him plan, and that was going to, guarantee the election in especially bigger municipalities towards his party. Well, they didn't work out, but lucky for Turkey, they have these special mechanisms that make sure that they
Let's
work.
recount.
Yeah.
Something went wrong. We didn't keep the elections open enough.
Yeah.
Let's recount these votes. 1, 2, Erdogan.
It doesn't even say any other candidate. It just says Erdogan on it.
Erdogan. It's a post-it note.
So
That's wrong.
yeah. So Yulia, which the 3 cities are in play are what? Izmir,
Ankara, and Istanbul.
Okay.
So the 3 fucking big ballers cities.
Exactly.
Of Turkey.
Yeah.
And it's the most important because that's where fucking Erdogan got his start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where he was, putting in the long nights doing neo-Ottoman.
He got arrested for. I was reading this earlier. He got arrested for saying a poem about how Turkey should be more Islamic.
He wrote a play.
Oh yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah, Erdogan wrote a horribly anti-Semitic play about how the Jews are like playing Turkey when he was like, I don't know, in his like late 20s.
A young lad.
Yeah, and
Oh damn it! I was hoping it wouldn't be anti-Semitic because it was like we have to perform the play.
I will learn Turkish only to perform this play.
We'll get a translation.
That is almost as romantic as Saddam Hussein writing a love story about him in Iraq.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Iraq is a woman, by the way.
Yeah.
He treats her right.
Yeah. Saddam Hussein was he had a hobby of being a romance novelist.
Yeah.
No joke.
Were there sex scenes in that? Did he actually fuck
Just
Iraq?
Saddam Hussein just fucking busting.
He just loved that country.
Saddam Hussein, one of the fucking like LA creeps who's like, oh, I need to get started as an actor. I'll write my own stories. And then I slept with her. It's part of the scene.
Yo, we fucked.
Yeah. And I was thinking Heidi Klum for this part.
Heidi Klum and the role of Iraq.
I was thinking her for Saddam, but alright, I like your idea.
I just imagine some like fucking like Borat-esque scene where where Borat fucking puts Pamela Anderson in a bag.
Yeah.
Just like that with just some like Iraqi Revolutionary Guard, wherever they are, the Republican Army guys just like sneaking into the U.S. and just like kidnapping fucking Heidi Klum.
God, all of Saddam's romance novels, do they just read a lot better when both characters are Heidi Klum?
Yes, please.
I don't know what it is.
Okay. Now I have to think of
Don Lundgren is Saddam Hussein.
Hot.
Yeah. So okay.
Yeah.
The opposition, though, in particularly major municipalities, took a very interesting tactic that proved to work.
Yeah. So we're speaking about the HDP or HDP, beziehungsweise, respectively, Turkey's People's Democratic Party. Maybe I give like some details on the party and yeah. Okay, so
here we are like 2 hours later. Yulia's like proclaiming her love of Abdullah Öcalan.
Yeah, seriously.
So
we can read
mail.
from his book. No.
Yeah, we can read from his book.
But actually, this party is mostly identified as an only pro-Kurdish party, which is a misconception. Because they're very much very inclusive party.
They're the only hope for that fucking country.
Let's say it like that.
Just be really frank.
Because they actually also give a voice to like the Yazidi and Armenians and other minorities, and they have stuff like women's assembly, and they include the LGBT community, etc., etc. So awesome party. Yeah. With a like pro-peace bottom up left alliance, and
they are like, if you could like say that like Öcalanism is a thing,
Yeah.
with their like democratic confederalism.
Yeah.
They really do like stand by that ideal of that political thought, which is pimp. Like, which is, like, I mean, I may not agree with every single thing that then's on their thing, but for Christ's sake, in comparison to any other party that then exists in Turkey.
Yeah,
it's very heavily influenced by Bookchin. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because the party's aim is kind of like to transform the autocratic state and kind of like to speak with Pulanzas, with parliamentary and extra-parliamentary struggles, to kind of try to democratize Turkey. And if you want to know more about the history of the HDP or HDP or People's Democratic Party, I would recommend you to read articles by Rosa Butch, that's her name. And she also has written articles for Jacobin magazine, for example. And she is a great
and
researcher.
And German also, Kerem
Schamberg. Yeah, Schamberg.
I think that Schamberg. I think his last name.
Okay, we're not good on names today.
They've done articles together too.
Yeah, exactly.
I think for Jacobin.
Also, I'm just going to be a dick and tell you to Google Murray Bookchin.
Yeah. I mean, you can also do that if you want. If you want to be a fucking weirdo.
Woo! So.
They can explain this stuff significantly better than
we do.
We can, and they're both like really fucking good activists.
Yeah,
in the shit
and experts on this topic. Yeah. But to explain the strategy, the HDP went with kind of like with a two-part strategy. One of them was going by the slogan "Yamiye," or like my Kurdish is not the greatest, or that also means translated, "It's ours." And it refers to the municipalities that the HDP won in the elections in 2015. It was, I guess,
the mayoral elections.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and the HDP won a lot of municipalities, especially, of course, in the south. That is known to be an area with a lot of like minority groups, especially Kurdish groups. And those, after these elections, the government of the AKP actually cracked down on these regions and imprisoned mayors, took away the municipalities from them. So actually, took away the.
Yeah, a bunch of people just like disappeared.
Oh, that they were put into prison. There were a lot of repressions against. Kurdish elected mayors, etc. That was the one strategy. That was just to take the municipalities back, especially in the south, especially in those like smaller regions that are not in the western or part of Turkey. The other part of the strategy, of their election strategy, was actually to not put candidates on the list for the bigger, like the major cities in the West. So cities we were talking about, like Istanbul, for example, because they actually wanted the voting base of the HDP to vote for the candidate of the CHP,
which historically is extremely weird.
Yeah,
if you know the I mean, like,
it's a quite unusual strategy.
The CHP has not been good when it comes to Turkish relations.
Yeah.
And most actually, like a lot of the oppression that came in the 1970s and 1980s came from the party that had pretty much always controlled Turkey, which was the CHP, which is the oldest party in modern Turkey.
They're the Kemalist one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they are very, like, I don't want to be too harsh on them because the AKP is significantly worse, obviously. But when, like, there are, like, the CHP up until, like, very recently has been very bad about minority rights in the country.
But basically, they're doing a strategy of like not splitting the vote, like
exactly
Erdogan coalition.
Because the HDP last general election, I think, got 12% or something. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like a really teeny tiny percentage,
yeah.
And they had it with their candidate, their presidential candidate in prison. and still managed to have the turnout that they did. So it
isn't
that, and it's not that they have, it's not like they like there's some like little, like the pirate party or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
12% in like a multi-party system is substantial.
Yeah.
But
especially with a group of people who like can't vote.
Or they actually
very
thought
much discouraged to.
So but they actually thought that it would make more sense to not run in cities where it's most likely for the Republican People's Party, so the CHP, to win. Well, they just said cities where the HDP like isn't the highest on the list in those major cities, then go and they try to
twist. Okay. What? The HDP won a bunch of municipalities.
Yeah.
And then, just kidding, they actually didn't.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that was. I guess going into the HDP has this tactic. The HDP wins in provinces that they typically always win in, and the AKP then declares these as like fraud elections mostly. And then they just they call for, I think they've called for 2 re-elections if I'm not mistaken. They've called for 1 completely in Istanbul because they didn't win. And what they typically what typically happens in Turkey is that which is typical of most democratic systems, is that if a party feels that there's irregularities, they'll call for a re-election within the precinct that voting was done in. However, the governing body of election oversight in Turkey is the AKP. So if you make a claim against them that there's election fraud, there's this or that, like you need to recount, the AKP will typically say no when it benefits another party, and then claim that there's election fraud when it does when it benefits them to have a recount. Istanbul was exactly that.
So now we're having a recount in Istanbul.
And in other provinces they've called that there can be re-elections, but they can't run the old candidates.
Well, how's it in Diyarbakir or something?
I'm
not
don't
sure
they have
about
to
that.
run like they can only run the candidates that the AKP allows them to run, which are like the second favorite candidates of the AKP.
Right. Well, so the things I had heard about this, and I'm kind of curious your take about this, is that I heard that in Istanbul, I think it was, that AKP or Erdogan wanted like all constituencies of Istanbul to be recounted, but then the committee was just like, no, only 14 or something of them. So that's seems to be a bit of pushback on that, which is interesting. It's not like they're just completely bowing to his superior will.
But now they just called for complete new elections in Istanbul, like yesterday, I think it was.
All right, well then, fuck it. That theory's out the window.
If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I read an article yesterday about that.
About what?
That Istanbul's calling for, that the AKP's calling for completely new elections in Istanbul.
Yeah, that's true. And also like those, what I just said, like Diyarbakir, which is in the south and is obviously like a very pro-Kurdish, like not pro-Kurdish, they are Kurdish people. And
they're pro themselves.
Sure, I'm
and everyone else as well. So.
I'm pro Kira.
Yeah, but those like mayors are, as you just said, also like not accepted by the AKP again.
And
so
the AKP is allowing them their candidates to then take the position practically.
So actually, a few days ago, or like 1 day ago, or something, I don't know, there was a massive like sit-in and strike in Diyarbakir, which is a city of millions of people, against these decisions by the AKP, and
Good job.
So.
Good job.
I guess we could have that discussion of if Turkey's a democracy. And,
let's talk about that. Let's talk about how those elections went down. I don't know how much fun it is to go
and vote.
Voting. To vote. Where there's like a tank in front of your.
Massive intimidation from the ruling party to tell you not to go there.
A lot of the times, like election observers were not allowed to enter the Wahllokale. the places where people vote.
Yeah.
What?
The places where you go to vote. Where you
What
put
was the German word?
Wahllokal.
Oh, like local vote? For local voting booth? Local
Yeah,
voting
yeah,
booth?
exactly, yeah. So a lot of like foreign observers were not allowed to.
It's precinct actually, but
Yeah, fair enough.
Whatever, you're the native speakers.
No, I'm bad.
I'm just saying Wahllokal from now on.
The local Balkans, yeah, I'm down with this.
So there was a lot of like there were a lot of videos on Twitter by people that were there as foreign observers. For example, there was this guy from Die Jungen Grünen, so the Green Party of Germany, who was in Turkey to observe the elections, and he said, okay, shit went down. So there were
World Star.
Here's Erdogan fighting someone in the parking lot.
No, they said, okay, this were definitely not like free elections because there was a lot of voting intimidations of voters, and people actually, some of them even talked to these observers and said, okay, like I'm really scared to talk to you guys, but I mean I'm really also scared that my vote won't count at all. And there was actually an incident where 2 people were killed.
Mm-hmm.
Those were people by the even further right party of Turkey. The name?
The ultra-nationalist
Yeah.
one. I forgot what their name is.
Yeah,
too,
me
but
too.
They scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, but they were
The one with the 3 moons, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's
those
it.
guys. And they were actually like protesting that these elections weren't democratic enough. Even though I don't know how much they value democracy and democratic elections.
Democracy for me, but not for the
Exactly.
kind of stuff. Yeah.
So
Jalbek is very similar.
yeah. I mean, we have the same fun time in Hungary.
Yeah.
People from protesting.
The same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kuk is 15, the football riot that was the Kim party.
Yeah. So yeah, those people were shot. 2 people.
Goody.
Yeah, because they didn't like what was going on. And I mean, even if it doesn't depend like who was
Yeah, I mean,
shot,
regardless of the
regardless
political
of them
party,
being-
the
yeah.
fact that that's the extremity of what is happening in like.
yeah.
No, your death count of a vote shouldn't really be
Yeah.
above 0.
That's a pretty easy rule that you should follow.
Yeah.
It's like, 2 people died at the line at the DMV. I'm like, that really shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
But,
Tragic, I get it, but
and I mean, like kind of going back to the first country that we talked to, like the intimidation tactics that Netanyahu was using were also fucked.
Yeah,
with
tell me about
the-
it. Tell me about it.
The he proudly took a photo with these guys who installed cameras in the voting booths
Nice.
so that then it would deter people, particularly only in the Arab community that these were installed in, so that they wouldn't go and vote, or that they
these
would.
are special Arab detecting cameras.
Pretty much, yeah.
You have
So
to do
then-
like that DNA test before.
Literally. So then, like,
Shit,
the
I
guy,
can't tell.
the guys who put up these
23% Asian.
What should we
guys
do
who
with that?
the guys who put up the cameras took a picture with Netanyahu the next day, and then just like wrote out like Arab voting was down 50%. It worked. Like,
Whoa.
Jeez.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, like
Wow. That's some.
the Middle East's only democracy right there.
Love it.
Well,
Love it.
well,
Erdogan, learn. You don't need to
That's
go
how you
murder
do it.
people.
Yeah, you don't have to put tanks in front of the.
Just
like,
spy
voting
on
Just
them.
have those special. I'm sure we can mod the cameras so these detect cards. I don't know. These weird DNA detecting cameras.
You have
Yeah.
like a fucking like, what is it? Like in Rwanda, we just have like the Belgians going around measuring everyone's like forehead size and whatnot.
Oh my god.
That's how they split up people into made-up
Yeah.
racial groups.
I know,
Yeah.
Worked
God
well.
Damn it,
Yeah.
Belgium.
That
So what we need to do to solve Turkish democracy is have a bunch of Belgians going around.
That's our solution for everything, isn't it?
That is the European solution for everything, actually, yes.
So
Tiny country, big responsibility.
Look at this
oh god,
look at this country the size of London. It should surely own half of Africa. That makes sense. Guys, it's 1910s mindset.
Yep.
but yeah, so the world sucks.
Voting is
Democracy
cool.
apparently is this thing
Works.
that can very
Works.
easily manipulate.
Democracy does die in darkness.
Yeah.
Best of luck to all our friends, Turkey, Israel, and Ukraine in this year's Eurovision. I haven't been paying attention. Israel's hosting it, so they're probably taking part. I think Ukraine was banned again, and Turkey, come back. It hasn't been the same since you guys left.
Is Turkey like god tier when it comes to that as well?
Like in Eurovision?
Eurovision. No, not in stifling democracy.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Do you want a new song to the soundtrack to Aladdin you didn't know happened? Because that's what Turkey's entry always is.
Yeah.
Yeah, Turkish pop music is fucking
It's
pimp.
awesome.
It's so good. I'm sure it's died like fucking watered down for Eurovision this version. But yeah, it's always fun. The last time they were in the competition, all the dancers on stage turned into a boat. I'll show it to you afterwards.
It's fucking awesome. But,
Oh yeah, Turkish pop music. This is also one of my.
Yeah, Yulia
passions.
fucking loves Turkish pop music.
Good.
So, yeah, I think that's...
Shout out to Alena Tilki.
Yeah, I think that'll do it then, right? Like, that's
us for this week. Speaking of Turkish pop music, check out Melty Brains for doing our theme song. New Dawn.
with their new song, Chok Chok.
Chuck Chuck.
That
Best
actually
song.
is...
Awesome song.
Yeah.
An awesome
Bang into
song.
that. T-pop.
Yeah, see you guys next week.
See ya.
See you.
Were you-
All right, see you.
Were you correcting our English?
Bye. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Bye.